There are two moments I remember crying 2 years apart. The first one out of self-loathing and shame, and the second out of compassion and forgiveness for the girl who didn't even know what abuse was, or how it impacted her negatively. And those tears marked the turning point from self-hate to self-love. You were not born hating yourself. None of us were. I know that's something that a lot of people tend to think, but that's not true. Many people believe that when they start hating themselves as teens, at 13, 14, or 15, they think that it's just something that they decided to just hate themselves. And yes, during puberty, teens go through a growth spurt, which is you get taller, all of a sudden you get hair on your body, your boobs start growing and all that. Like your body goes through a lot of change, even hormonally, which can impact the way that you feel about yourself at that time, because there's so much going on within yourself. It's like you are figuring yourself out. You are seeing, oh, this is what I am. This is what I like. This is what I don't like. You are also experimenting a lot. And you are also like looking out into the world and looking out at other people and what they're doing and who they are, comparing themselves to other people, or maybe feeling a bit insecure about themselves as they go through a lot of changes when it comes to their body, as they're trying to figure out their place in the world. That's totally normal. And at that time in your life, you look out and seek role models. That is a very young, impressionable age, I should say. But what's not normal is looking at yourself in front of the mirror, hating yourself, and thinking you're ugly, and being really harsh with yourself, beating yourself up whenever you make a mistake, attaching your self-worth to external factors like achievements or being in a relationship with someone, like as if you feel like there's an empty hole inside of you if you don't get into a relationship and fill that hole within yourself by being in a relationship. That is not normal, and that isn't part of a teenage growth years. What is not normal is the fact that you develop an eating disorder. What is not normal is the fact that you start comparing your 14, 15-year-old self's body to a grown 25-year-old woman's body. What is not normal is you developing a body dysmorphia all of a sudden, out of nowhere. Like it's just happened. Well, it can happen in today's society with the crazy ass beauty standards that we have. The skinnier, the better. Your thighs should look skinnier. Your bust should look bigger. Oh, no. This part of your body should look bigger or smaller or skinnier. Like, I don't know. So many rules, expectations when it comes to how a woman's body should look like. You know, features and body shapes moving like fashion trends. I would not be surprised if more teens now, more than ever before, start developing eating disorders or body dysmorphia or negative body image. However, if you grew up with parents that didn't emotionally neglected you, didn't abuse you, but raised you in a healthy way, where you grew up with a healthy self-esteem, confidence, where you are self-assured, chances are you will not be affected by them. You may, as a teenager, maybe go through a bit of a comparison phase, but you may not go through a whole self-hatredness, negative body image phase. It's because the reason why a lot of people feel like their appearance defines them, their appearance is part of their self-worth, or constantly chasing the feeling of being good enough, because you are attaching your self-worth to external factors, that if I get this face or this body or this part of my body to look like this, then I'll feel worthy and good enough. So the way that your parents raised you plays a big role in how you will feel about yourself later down the line. But unfortunately, that's not the case for a lot of people. You see, according to Tim Fletcher, 75% of people in our society experiences emotional neglect. And I will not be going too deep into this aspect that I'll be talking about right now, which is about emotional neglect and the damaging impact of that. Your childhood trauma made you hate yourself. This is the video that I'll be linking down in the description box down below, where I went full in depth about all the ways in which you experiencing emotional neglect growing up or during childhood impacted your relationship with yourself. When you experience ongoing emotional neglect, you've experienced complex trauma. And when you've experienced complex trauma, your sense of self gets destroyed, to the point where they will find their identity in someone or something due to the core identity that develops, which is called shame. You will do anything growing up to find who you are in something or someone due to the toxic shame that develops due to the emotional neglect or abuse that you've experienced. That shame and you attaching your self-worth to external factors is a recipe for disaster, is a recipe for self-hatred later down the line, because you will feel ashamed of yourself, you will feel worthless. What also happens is the fact that you grow up either becoming a people pleaser or a codependent, depending on whether you were parentified as a child or not. Conditional love from your parents leads to self-betrayal and self-abandonment. You betray yourself, your needs, your values, in order to be accepted, loved, liked by other people. You abandon yourself to chase the feeling of being good enough through external factors because you have this hole inside of yourself from the childhood trauma that you've experienced. So how could you grow up as a teenager loving yourself unconditionally when you were taught to suppress and reject certain aspects of yourself? When you are taught that when you please your parents, that's when you are lovable. When you mold yourself to be what people want you to be, that's when you're lovable. But when you are just yourself, you're not lovable. Or when you get that perfect straight A's in an exam, that's when you're lovable. And you will think that if I get this body, this face, this feature, this whatever, or if I accomplish this, then I'll feel good enough about myself. As if that you are not lovable for who you are, but for what you do or what you get or how you look like. Or the toxic plastic surgery society that we live in today. Oh, you are gonna be so easily influenced. And guess what you're gonna do? You're gonna hate yourself. That's what is going to happen. But you see, that doesn't happen in a normal, healthy teenager, I should say. If your parents made you believe that you are lovable for who you are and your self-worth comes from here, not from anything external factors, there's no way that you're gonna grow up and feel horrible about yourself. Maybe you might, maybe due to external circumstance like bullying, that impacts a lot of people and their relationship with themselves negatively. As someone who has been through bullying themselves, so I understand how that might impact someone's relationship with themselves really negatively. As a teenager, when you're 12, 13, or 14, you don't just wake up and decide, oh, I'm deciding to hate myself. I feel worthless, I feel ashamed. You see, that's the thing, is that people don't realize the ways in which experiencing either emotional neglect or abuse impacts their relationship with themselves later down the line. And people don't even have any idea that they have experienced emotional neglect. For many people, it's not even obvious that they have experienced childhood trauma because their childhood seemed amazing on the surface, but they have no idea that they have experienced emotional neglect. People don't even know the fact that they've experienced narcissistic abuse from their parents. because they don't know anything about narcissist. Neither did they heard anything about it. Or the fact that they've experienced religious abuse or purity culture, because they don't know anything about religious abuse. Abuse just in general. Because, nobody teaches us about all of these things. So how they're gonna know the
fact that, oh yeah, like I have narcissistic parents, these are the things that I've went through and this is how it impacted me.
No teenager knows about that. I mean, unless you educate yourself on this, of course, then you'll know about it. I knew nothing about purity culture or what that even was until I came across this article online. I was like, holy F. So I've been through purity culture for the longest time. The fact that I felt ashamed about myself and my body due to experiencing purity culture and sexual abuse, which I had absolutely no idea of. On top of that, I thought I was the bad child for believing, for thinking, the fact that I don't want to be part of this religion that I was abused to be part of. I thought there was something wrong with me. I clearly remember molding myself to be what everyone else wanted me to be the good child. I mean, I didn't know the fact that at the age of 13 and 14, when I started comparing my body to Victoria's Secret models, or the fact that I started developing an eating disorder and a negative body image, that it was the effect of me experiencing abuse in my childhood. Or the fact that I blamed myself for the sexual abuse that I've experienced in childhood. I've experienced self-gaslighting. I thought it was my fault for seeming agreeable, for not saying anything. It happened twice. And for both of the times, I thought it was my fault. I didn't know the fact that I was in freeze or fawn, a survival response, that my body was trying to protect me. I didn't know that. Being so hard on myself, tears flowing down my cheeks, looking at myself and my body, feeling ashamed or worthless, like I'm not good enough. Not even seeing at the time how dark my childhood was, because I didn't know anything about abuse or how it impacted me for the longest time growing up. To me, it was just the 13 and 14-year-old me feeling horrible about myself. And that's just it. I mean, there was no reason or no explanation. There's such horrible things happened to me as a child. It wasn't until I started my healing journey that I understood the depth of my pain that I've experienced in my childhood and growing up. And all the other painful things that I've been through in my childhood that I don't feel comfortable sharing here online, by the way. And here I was, blaming myself, which was the cause of the abuse that I've experienced. And those experiences has shaped the way I felt about myself as a 13, 14, early 15-year-old. I cried a lot during the phase when I was feeling horrible about myself. But I remember two moments, 2 years apart, looking at myself in front of the mirror, I started crying. The first one out of self-loathing and shame and worthlessness. I hated myself. And the second time at 16, when I decided to face everything that I've been through in my childhood, but it wasn't tears out of self-loathing or shame. It was tears out of compassion and forgiveness for the girl who knew nothing about what abuse was, or the fact that I've experienced abuse in my childhood, or how the abuse that I've experienced in my childhood impacted my relationship with myself at that time. Those tears marked the turning point from self-hate to self-love. I wasn't crying because I was feeling like a victim or feeling sorry for myself or feeling powerless. I was crying because I had so much compassion and forgiveness for my younger self. The girl who needed love and compassion and was craving it so much. If I could, I would hug her and tell her that it wasn't her fault. It was the conditional self, the result from the abuse that she experienced in her childhood. All these effects from abuse that made her hate herself when she didn't know any better. And I have nothing against my past self. Nothing but love and compassion and forgiveness. When a child experiences abuse, they don't stop loving the abuser. They stop loving themselves. And that's something that I read in an article while I was researching something related to abuse, and it hit me so hard because that's exactly what happened to me. That's exactly what happens to the majority of the people that have experienced abuse. When I was experiencing religious abuse, or the fact that I experienced sexual abuse twice, I didn't stop loving the abuser. I didn't per se love the abuser, but it's just like I didn't stop liking them. I still liked them, but I started to gaslight myself. I started to blame myself, and I started to feel ashamed about myself and my body, because children internalize the abuse that they experience in childhood, which is the reason why everything becomes about you. You start hating yourself. You start feeling worthless and ashamed about yourself. But when it comes to the abuser, oh, no, they're okay, like nothing about them, bro. But everything is about me. I'm the problem. I am the bad child. And feeling like they cannot be good enough. People go through their entire lives having thoughts and beliefs and values and carrying someone else's projections, carrying someone else's pain that was passed down from generations after generations. Seeing ourselves through the eyes of someone that projected their insecurities onto us, their unresolved pain, that is still impacting their relationship with themselves. And yet, they think it all comes from them. So just because you grew up hating yourself doesn't mean you have to continue that. Absolutely not. You can take your power back and end the toxic relationship that you have with yourself and return to the place of unconditional self-love and having the healthy, loving relationship with yourself. That is your birthright, which is to have a healthy, loving relationship with yourself. It's your birthright to feel amazing, great about yourself, to look in the mirror and say the fact that, you know what, this is who I am, and I am absolutely proud of the person that's looking back at me in front of the mirror. And I like and love who I am. This is your birthright. Treating yourself with love and respect is your birthright. It's not about fixing. It's about unlearning and all the negative things that you've learned about yourself and letting go of your conditioned self from the effects of your childhood trauma, abuse, emotional neglect, or whatever you've experienced, and returning back to yourself, accepting, embracing, and loving who you are. That is your birthright. No matter whether you hated yourself or disliked yourself, no matter what happened in the past, you are here now, and that's all that matters. You are responsible for the relationship that you have with yourself, regardless of what you've been through in your childhood. You may not want to hear that, but it is something that everybody needs to hear. The fact that you are choosing what type of relationship that you want to have with yourself every single day. Just like when I was 16, in the middle of my second toxic connection, and I didn't want to feel worthless, not good enough, felt like I had no self-respect, and the fact that I ended up in another toxic connection. So I decided to take responsibility to change things so that I can develop a healthy, loving relationship with myself. Just like how I took responsibility at that time, you can choose to do the same thing right now. Now that you know better, you can do better. I want you to know that you are not alone in this journey. I've been there, done that. As I've already mentioned in the video, the types of abuse that I've experienced in my childhood. Religious abuse, sexual abuse twice, purity culture, and some other painful things that I don't want to mention here, but you heard me mention that. So on top of the abuse that I've experienced, I've went through bullying, I've went through 2 toxic connections. If I can learn how to have a healthy, loving relationship with myself and how to let go and release my conditioned self, then so can you. It's time to stop walking through life, looking at yourself through someone else's unresolved pain and projections and insecurities that was passed down to you, that was projected onto you. The power lies in your own hands to start building a healthy, loving relationship with yourself, because no one can do that for you. And nobody's gonna come here and tell you, oh, you should start your self-love and healing journey. Nobody's gonna come here and tell you that, which is the reason why it's called self-love for a reason. If you're ready to start your self-love journey, or if you've already started your self-love journey, but you want to deepen the connection that you have with yourself, and you want to work on areas that you want to improve when it comes to the relationship with yourself, then join me, because I will be guiding you step by step on how you can not only start your self-love journey, but everything that you need to learn about self-love so that you can build a healthy, loving relationship with yourself and learn to accept, embrace, and love yourself. I will be sharing everything that I've learned on my journey that has helped me to build a loving, healthy relationship that I have with myself, as well as there are certain things where I will let you choose on certain things that you want to do on your self-love journey that you think would be best for you. So this is not just me telling you on how to do things, but of course I'll be teaching you and guiding you through the fundamentals of self-love, creating a routine, practicing self-love, showing up for yourself, what it means to prioritize yourself, learning about self-worth, self-respect. I'll be guiding you through my favorite self-love practices and also how you can find out your favorite self-love practices that works for you and your individual self and your needs and who you are and what you've been through, because everyone is different. So not only I'll be your teacher, but I'm also going to be your guide, guiding you on this journey towards building a healthy, loving relationship with yourself. If you want to educate yourself when it comes to your childhood trauma, your specific childhood trauma, whether it was emotional neglect, whether that was narcissistic abuse from your parent or parents or a sibling or siblings, or whether that was religious abuse, or whether that was you experiencing purity culture, whether that was sexual abuse or physical abuse, whatever it was, the video that I linked in the description box down below, you will be able to educate yourself on the specific childhood trauma that you've experienced in your childhood and growing up, or just in your childhood. And you will learn a lot about big T trauma or small t trauma, complex trauma, and so on and so forth in the video that I just linked in the description box down below, which is Your Childhood Trauma Made You Hate Yourself. Educating yourself about the specific childhood trauma that you've experienced will help you understand all of the ways in which your relationship was negatively impacted, so that you can clearly separate from the person that you now want to be from your authentic self versus the conditioned self that you were all this time. This is something that's extremely helpful. So if you want to be your authentic self, then you need to know clearly for sure, for example, all the ways that you pleased your parents by betraying yourself, small and big ways. You need to know that, you need to acknowledge that, you need to see that for you to clearly now separate your conditioned self versus the authentic self that you want to be, and your values and beliefs as your authentic self. If you found this video helpful, then you will absolutely find this video even more helpful. Don't forget to click the subscribe button and hit the notification bell so that you won't miss out on any of the new episode of my self-love series. And I'll see you on my next video. Bye.